Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, comedian Lindsay Glazer talks about getting arrested while working for the DA, Harry Connick Sr.
I'd say about a minute and a half goes by, and some woman runs out of nowhere screaming, "There's two people having sex in my car, and oh my God, she's working this penis like a stick shift." Like, this is what she yelled. I don't even know, why she said that. And so this, anti-Mardi Gras prude flags down a pair of officers, and they take me out of the car and they arrest me. So I don't know what's happening now, because I thought it was illegal not to be drunk and making out during Mardi Gras. And the cop goes, "Yeah, that's true, but you got to do it in your own car."
Today on the show, Lindsay Glazer talks about getting arrested while working for the DA, Harry Connick Sr. Stay close.
Hey, it's Lindsay Glazer, and you're listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show of almost 13 years, or you're a new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the show last week with comedian and author Cambry Cruz. Cambry told a really wonderful story about how David Lee Roth gave her inspiration growing up. And you're thinking, what are you talking about? Well, let me tell you something. Cambry Cruz has an amazing story about growing up in the woods. I'm not kidding. Being very isolated and finding comfort in Van Halen's David Lee Roth. So go back, you guys. Find out how David Lee Roth saved Cambry Cruz's soul. But not today. Stay with me now, because today I'm here with another very talented comedian. Her name is Lindsay Glazer. And I found out about Lindsay through one of my favorite guests of all time, Esther Koo. Esther is always full of crazy, wild stories, and she's just a firecracker. So when Esther Koo says, "I got somebody for you, Christine," I believe her. And that's why Lindsay Glazer's here. Hi, Lindsay. How are you?
Hi, Christine. Thank you so much for having me.
Yay. And today, Lindsay, you bring forth the topic, getting arrested while working for the DA, Harry Connick Sr.
Yes.
So I'm so excited to hear this story, but I just want to be clear that we're talking about the Harry Connick Sr. that is the father of the crooner. Is that true?
Yes, that is absolutely true. Harry Connick Sr., father to Harry Connick Jr., the famous singer.
And he's a judge.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I had on comedian Rachel Wolfson on the show before, and she's the girl that was just recently on Jackass Forever, on the last Jackass. And her mother is a judge in Las Vegas. And her mother actually was the judge who put OJ in jail for stealing those trophies or whatever, stealing back his awards or whatever he was doing. But I find that very interesting that, just the whole world of law and judges and all of that. So you are a criminal defense attorney?
I am an attorney. I started in criminal defense, and then I went back to school, got my master's in criminology, and did expert witness. But criminal defense is where I started. I interned. This story is about when I interned at the prosecutor's office, but then I started the public defender, became a defense attorney for many years.
Yeah. It's just so interesting that you went through all that schooling. My God, that's a lot of schooling, a lot of studying. Obviously, you must be very bright. And then you're a comedian.
Yeah, I am. It's all the same skill. I was a litigator. It's all performance-based.
Really?
Yeah. They did a study. This is true. They did a study that in voir dire, that the more laughs you get per minute in jury selection, the more likely you are to win the case, even if it's a serious case like murder.
Really? Wait, just say that one more time.
That there was a study, you can look it up, that in voir dire, which is the Latin name for jury selection, when you're picking the jury, that they have predicted that the more laughs you get per minute during that part of the trial process, the more likely you are to win the case, even if that case is a murder case.
But when you're picking the jury, I've been a jury person many times, not on a jury, but selected to go down to the courthouse. And I've been in a couple of those rooms where the lawyers are choosing the jury people. So in Los Angeles, obviously we have a huge city here. So there's truly 200 people sitting in the room. And then these attorneys they call you up, they ask you questions, and then they dismiss most of the people. And it takes hours. So you're telling me that in that period, that's when they're trying to get laughs?
Sometimes. I mean more when they've narrowed down from the pool where they've pulled from the assembly. You're in the courtroom, and now there's they usually in Miami where I was, they did it about 15 at a time, 12 at a time, 20 at a time. And that smaller portion, not where you have people like asking you about the fifth, where you're in the assembly room and they're running the movie and they're going, hey, do you have any problems? And you're filling out the form. Not there. When you're in the courtroom and the judge is reading you, hey, you're not allowed to hold the Fifth Amendment. The question that they always ask first is, if the defendant didn't testify, would you hold it against him? That's where the judge reads that and then the third.
Yeah. So it's not the assembly room like you said. I didn't know the word for that. So this is when it gets down to it. And now they're choosing a little closer. And I would suspect at this point everybody's actually sitting in that jury box, right? Are they? Yeah. And then the lawyer's talking to you right there.
Right, exactly. So it just like you see on TV, it's jurors in a jury box. It's the lawyers standing up and they're doing the jury selection. They're asking whatever questions there are about the case. Like, hey, are you going to hold, like one of the things I used to ask my jurors was, hey, are you a sports fan? What would you do if you watched a game and saw the ref didn't make any calls the whole time? And they go, we think the ref wasn't doing their job. And I go, so if you see me object, you saw me not object the whole trial, that would be me like a ref not doing the job. Would you hold it against me for objecting, or you think it's just me doing my job? Some variation of that I like tapped into like sports and comedy. And then that's how I would pick the jurors. Because as a defense attorney, you're going to have to object, and you don't want people to think that you objecting is like a sign of guilt.
That is so flipping interesting. Honestly, nobody knows that. Nobody knows that. That is really, really cool. So you say that, being a lawyer is a lot like being a comic. It's about your performance. It's about, convincing people, getting people on your side. But you have to have an awful lot of knowledge. To be a comedian, I just have to know about my life and make my life funny. But as a lawyer, you have to have facts.
Yeah, you got to know evidence. It's a litigator that's more like performance. Not like if you're an appellate lawyer, you're just a nerd and you're just a very smart nerd in a box not dealing with people. Litigating is more like comedy because it's definitely based on performance that you are now taking facts of a case and convincing people. All jobs are sales jobs, Christine. You sell laughter to an audience or not guilty verdicts to a jury.
Interesting. No, now when there's those famous trials that are on, like the Murdaugh trial that was just going on, did you watch that?
I did not.
Oh, it was so flipping good, man. It was so great. I would be interested, though, to sit with a lawyer and you could tell me what you think. Well, like they made a mistake or, he should have said that or...
It's too much. Watching like a big trial for a lawyer, it's too much like, I don't know, watching a version of The Office. It's like too real. Like you're like, oh, this is like so real life. But if I watch like law TV shows, I'm constantly screaming at the TV. Like there's no such thing as a surprise witness is the thing I scream most often at the TV. In other
words, when there's a witness, both sides have to know about it.
Yeah, otherwise
you can't
it's
just bring somebody in.
That's right. Otherwise it's a discovery violation. In Florida it was known as a Richardson violation. So anytime you're watching like How to Get Away with Murder, Law and Order, any of those shows, and they're like, we have a surprise witness. And it just makes every single lawyer I know bananas.
Because that is not allowed. That's so funny. That's really funny. And so what state do you have your law degree in?
Florida. And then I have like some, I also I scored high enough on the LSAT to be admitted to like Washington and some other states. But I practice in Florida. So when people ask me in Los Angeles, like, hey, can you help me with this distribution? I'm like, one, I don't do entertainment law. And two, I'm not licensed in California.
Yeah. But can't you help people? No, not in that, not if it's in California and not without, you could, right? I could ask a law firm to do what's called pro hoc vici me. It means they sign some papers saying that they'll like basically observe, they'll take me under their wing and I can practice under their law firm's license, basically. Or not their law firm's license, their partner's license. Yeah. It's like the way an architect doesn't have to have their license as long as their main firm has a license. Yeah. So you can do that temporarily for like a case. Can't do it too often, but like if you had like a case that
I don't know, California hired you on from. You could practice like what's called pro hoc vici.
But you can help your friends, can't you? I mean, I know not legally, but can't you just tell your friends advice? Do you do that?
No, actually, you are not allowed to legally advise someone as their lawyer in a state you don't practice. Now, like if Esther was like, hey, Lindsay, you know, my landlord said this, I might Google the Landlord-Tenant Act in California and help her write a letter or something, you know, in a casual sense. But even when like Paul Farivar interviewed me, he's another lawyer comic, and we did some like funny law, but both of us were like, we are not your lawyers. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Right. This is not a legal relationship. We didn't form one, because it gets very, very dicey.
I imagine it would. I imagine you look at even comedy club contracts like other people don't.
I mean, comedy club contracts, yes, I do. But for the most part, it's hard. It's hard, like in no one knows what they're doing until they're like in a theater. But for the most part, I don't worry about it. I just don't need an agent because I can read my own contracts. And I'm not famous enough for a manager yet, Christine.
Yeah. No, I'm just listen, anybody can pay a manager anytime. Now, is it a good manager? I mean, believe me, people will take your money and they'll say they're managing you. But are they? You know, so somebody will always take your money. That's for sure.
Right. Or they'll hip pocket to see where you're going. That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so you do have a child. How old is your girl?
She's 9 years old, and she...
Oh, 9.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's exciting. And does he go to school there in Las Vegas where you live?
Yeah, she goes to school here in Las Vegas. I mean, we are actually lucky because of what happened with Zoom school. We can move all around. She comes to Florida with me, to LA, and then you can Zoom into the school when you miss it. So we basically both can live in the main cabin of Delta Airlines if we want.
So your kid will travel with you on the road?
Not every time, but I make a point to try and work 1 weekend at home, 1 weekend traveling where she can go with me, and then only 2 weekends where I have to go by myself. Like I'm in Canada for 2 weeks in about a week. She's not coming with me there because it's just too hectic and crazy.
Sure. It's too much, yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Wow. So she sees her mother as a lawyer and then also a comedian. Like, it just gives you so much credibility, I think is the word.
As a comic, she asked me, we were at her school function the other day, and she told me Mr. Paquin he's so funny, Mommy, he's funny. And Mr. Paquin's standing next to me. He goes, you're a comedian, right? And I go, yeah. And he goes, does she think you're funny? I go, probably not. And I go, hey, right. Daniela, do you think I'm funny? She goes, not really. Yeah. Because what I think fair is most of your comedy is about me, and I'm not allowed to see it, which is true.
Yeah. No. Yeah. My kid's the same way, but my kid's 16 now. And when they want to really make it hurt, you know, they'll say things like, you don't even get paid to do comedy. You pay them to do comedy. And it's like, wow. Okay, then. You know, like kids will really hit you where it counts. That's for sure.
When I was in the pandemic and I gained weight, my daughter said, Mommy, you got so big.
Too crazy. Well, I will tell you, I'm a single mom and my kid is 16. And I'll tell you, as you know, it goes so fast. I mean, it's just like every single thing they do is gone next week. You know, it's just the friends, the schools, everything. It just keeps moving so quickly. I feel like having a child makes time go quicker. It seems to go quicker.
Absolutely. I'm a single mom too. I mean, to be fair, I also have a nanny, so I have help. But I am a single mom, and any single mom who does it like on her own, like it's amazing because I barely survive with help, to be honest. Like if I did not have help, if I hadn't been able to have like the law degree and have help, I honestly don't think I would have had kids because I know myself. Like I know like limits of like, you know.
Yeah. Well, I also have my kid has a good dad in her life, and that helps, you know.
Yeah.
Isn't that helpful? Yeah, that really makes a difference.
I always tell everyone he was a bad partner, but a good dad. And that's so much better for the kid because you don't want the opposite, good partner, bad dad. That's way worse.
Yep. Absolutely.
I get along with my ex. He's a great dad. He takes her to school every morning, and we don't have any, probably because I'm a lawyer and so is his family. We don't have any like court arrangements. We worked out all our money, all our custody, everything.
Amazing. That was very mature. And nobody lied or cheated?
Nobody cheated. Oh, some people
that's good.
lie, like he did lie, and that's kind of like the basis of like what happened. It's a very long story, but we've all worked on ourselves, and we have a good relationship, and but no one cheated.
Brilliant.
It would have been fine. Cheating, you can cheat a couple times. Who cares?
Well, I just feel like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel like parents who co-parent, if nobody lied in their divorce, they're likely to get through co-parenting better.
Absolutely.
But if somebody cheated on somebody and now somebody else is involved, and it just gets so ugly.
Yeah, no, it definitely took some work on my end going, I had some responsibility in this too. I didn't see some red flags up there that were there in the beginning. And so doing that work kind of helped me. I was like, all that happens if we fight is it hurts my daughter. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there again, you got education. You're educated and you know better. I think a lot of it has to do with, like, if you're an educated person, you think it through. Like, what's the best thing to happen here? Like, the best outcome is definitely not fighting in front of the kid,
And the best outcome from the money is for it all to go to the kid. And if you fight, it all goes to the lawyers.
Exactly. Boy, I know that. We were in mediation. Boy, we were going way off topic, but that's not the point. We were in mediation.
About being arrested. Let's talk about mediation.
And our mediation worked so well that then I recommended 4 other friends of mine going through divorces to the same mediator.
Must have been good, or he.
She was great. She was great, but it's just funny that, like, that's my biggest takeaway in life is use this mediator when you get divorced.
My biggest takeaway in life is never to do divorce law. People ask me and I wouldn't touch it because it's so crazy. Because what happens is if they're fighting and someone returns the kid home at 8:03, now they're in court arguing that they were 3 minutes late in the custody. It's so bad for the kids.
It's so sad. And then when they fight about vacations and who took who where and you got an extra hour, I got to get that hour back. And, people are nuts.
We're very lucky that even our in-laws can be in the same room. So when we have holidays, like my ex was able to come to my family's Thanksgiving and then we split it and, send her with him. So we're good like that.
We do the same too. We have all the same holidays. We're all together on the holidays. Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to hear your story getting arrested while working for the DA, Harry Connick Sr. And we're going to get over to your story in just a second. But before we do, I wanted to remind everybody to check out my other podcast, My Life in 3 Songs. It's exclusively on Spotify because we listen to the songs. And of course, I don't steal music. So head over to mylifein3songs.com. Check out the website. Follow the show on social media at My Life in 3 Songs. And, really, you guys, it's a great show, okay? If you listen to Storyworthy, and I got thousands of you listening to this show, you need to now head over to Spotify. It's totally free. And follow My Life in 3 Songs. If I have to keep begging, if I have to come to your house, I'll have to do that. But I'd rather not because I'm putting out a good product and you like me. So please, My Life in 3 Songs. Thank you.
I'll have my investigator help you pull all the addresses of your listeners here so you can send them letters and they can go listen.
Well, I'm talking about the law. Now I got the law on my side, you guys. So trust me, you better listen to My Life in 3 Songs or I'm coming at you. All right, you guys, I'm really thrilled to have this guest with me today. You hear her talking. She is a lawyer and she is a comedian and she has worked gigs all over the country. She's worked in over 40 cities. That's a lot of cities. And she's performed here in Los Angeles at the Laugh Factory and also in New York at Comic Strip Live, which is a really big, that's a big club out there as well. And you also have been on SiriusXM and on Spotify. And is your new comedy special out right now? Didn't you finish that?
I finished it, but it's not released by Comedy Dynamics until April 14th. Like I just got the artwork approved yesterday.
Oh, how exciting. And that's the album called Am I Fucking Zen Yet, right?
No, that's my book. It hasn't come out yet. My album is called Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad?
Yeah, and it's Laugh Factory Chicago I work. I did do Sit and Spin Comedy Central in LA and other clubs. And I do Comic Strip in New York monthly. And everywhere.
Great. That's great. So if you guys go over to Lindsay Glazer, that's Lindsay with an A, lindsayglazer.com, then you're going to get information on her upcoming book and her upcoming album, which is very, very exciting. And I also know that your YouTube channel is called Alpha Bitch.
That's right.
Tell me about that.
So alpha bitch is meant to be tongue in cheek. As a lawyer, when you, especially in criminal defense, it is a very male dominated industry. Like when they're showing you, that's the one true thing about like law shows that they're showing you. You got to be very much like a strong, like what they call like brusque woman. Maybe now it's better, but when I was starting, you really had to like fight and be brusque, and people would always be like, oh, Lindsay, she's a bitch. And all I did was act like a man did, right? Yeah. All I did was be assertive, but assertive for a woman is called bitch. So alpha bitch was meant to be like tongue in cheek, like, oh, I don't think I'm a bitch. Other people think I'm a bitch because I fought for my clients and did what any male would do without any sort of like repercussions.
Of course.
But women are supposed to do it softly and subtly and be okay. And like, you had to do a lot of stuff like that. So alpha bitch became like a tongue in cheek. I don't think I'm a bitch. But people always say, hey, alpha bitch a character. I'm like, no, it's me pulled back. I'm pandering. Like, really it is.
Oh, no, it's interesting. You know, I am also a comedian, and this one club I go to all the time, the owner always says to me, you're a toxic woman. That's what you are. You're a toxic woman. And I'm not even sure what that means, but it sounds a little bit like alpha bitch.
No, you're right. Me and Jill Carlson did a show called Toxic Femininity that was also supposed to be tongue in cheek, but people don't understand satire anymore. They didn't get that it was supposed to be tongue in cheek. Yeah. It's just females trying to fucking claim their place. What's the big deal? And Booker, you're great. I get this. Sweetie, you're great. You do a great job of being a feminist, but also pointing out the other side and the hypocrisy of feminism. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like you're the first one to do that. But, all right, you guys, I'm so excited to hear this story. All right, everybody, wherever you are, put your hands together for the very talented Lindsay Glazer.
Thank you. So I went to Tulane Law School in New Orleans. And this story, let me first tell you the setting. This story happened after 9/11. It was the next year after 9/11. And at the time, both the Super Bowl and Mardi Gras were scheduled for the same weekend in New Orleans. And the FBI flew down and said, absolutely not. We cannot cover the airspace. That was the year they moved the Super Bowl to the other weekend and then became the other weekend. So what I remember about this, first off, Tulane is a great school. I loved beads. At the time I was interning for like Harry Connick Sr., as in Harry Connick Jr.'s dad. Imagine an older version of Harry Connick Sr. who passed the bar exam and you don't want to fuck. I'm sorry, Harry Connick Sr., I love you. I'm at Mardi Gras. Everyone was super drunk because it's Mardi Gras. Binge drinking is basically like the sport in New Orleans, and it's Thursday night. So I meet this here's the thing. I was supposed to go on a date that night with this guy named Justin who worked for a ticket broker who knew my dad. But at the time, our cell phones were all knocked out. There were so many people in New Orleans that no one's cell phones were working. I was trying to call him to meet him. No one had a signal. No one could get anyone. Yeah, no one.
Every hotel packed out, obviously.
Everything. Not just a hotel, like everywhere. Like I remember seeing so many people. It was more than like later I did the Half Disney Marathon. There was more people here throughout the city. You couldn't move, like shoulder to shoulder. Like it was like, I remember thinking, holy shit, someone could set off a bomb here and kill a bunch of people. Like it was scary.
Yeah.
And I'm not particularly claustrophobic. I was just just packed. And they had already moved the Super Bowl in New Orleans. But because of like 9/11 and people being grieved, now they want to celebrate. This whole people have come out. Mardi Gras is already dangerous. There's already shots going off sometimes. And I tried to call this guy I was supposed to be on a date with and meet him and tell him I couldn't meet him. But I can't get a hold of him. There's nothing I can do. No one's phone is working. Not my landline. My landline wasn't working either. I don't remember why. We still had a landline. And I end up with my friends at this Mardi Gras parade. And everyone is drunk. And I meet this guy who's from Chicago. I'm from Illinois originally. And I mean, he was pretty hot, or at least I think he was. Like I said, I was pretty drunk. So who knows? Who knows? And I had a lot of beads. Like I had more beads than like a 3-year-old's activity kit, basically.
And how do you get the beads? Let's just be honest. How do you get the beads?
You get the beads by being cute in the up front and begging for them, or you can show your tits and get bigger beads. I did all of those things. I don't remember which ones. I had more beads than like porn stars doing anal. Like I did. And like my dad was actually, as a side note, my dad was here recently visiting my daughter and brought her some Mardi Gras beads from the UCSB. And he goes, I bet your mom had a lot of beads back in the day. I'm like, Dad, why would you bring that up at lunch to my 9-year-old? But So I'm very drunk, and I get drunk with this guy, and I have a rental car. So first off, I'm a terrible driver. Like, my daughter said to me recently, Mommy, you're the worst driver ever. And I go, have you been talking to Grandpa Jay? And she goes, no, I have eyes. And it is true. I'm a bad driver. I was in a terrible car accident when I was in high school. I had to retake driver's ed. I never recovered. I'm a bad driver. I know I'm a bad driver. So I was in a car accident, and I had a rental car. I had a Dodge Stratus. And back then, all the keys of the rental car, went to all the keys. And it was from Enterprise, and I had a red Dodge Stratus that was parked on Royal Street. Now, I knew I couldn't drive. I don't drive drunk. My dad owned liquor stores growing up. He always taught me you don't drive drunk because either it's $70 to $100 in 2 days of your life, or it's a DUI and $20,000 and years of your life. And so even when I'm very drunk, that lesson still is there.
Definitely.
But this was before Uber. So this guy says he can drive. I say, okay, that was probably also a bad decision, but I'm too drunk to notice. We walk back to my car on Royal Street to a Dodge Stratus, and I give him my keys. He opens the door, and we get into the car. He tries to start the car, and it doesn't start. Now, like I said, I'm in a Dodge Stratus. I go, when I rent a car, I go super fancy, and the Ford Pinto wasn't available. And we get in, and this guy's hot, has six-pack abs. He tries to start it, so it won't start. And I'm drunk and 23 and corny, and I'm like, well, maybe it just needs to touch your stick shift. And let's just be clear, by stick shift, I mean a penis. And then I put it in fourth gear, straight down. Now fifth gear, right and up. And right after that, I get his engine to hum. You guys can't see me doing the visual, but, that's what I'm doing.
Oh, my God.
About, I don't know, I'd say about a minute and a half goes by, and some woman runs out of nowhere screaming, there's two people having sex in my car, and oh my God, she's working this penis like a stick shift. Like, this is what she yelled. I don't even know, why she said that. And so this, I don't know, anti-Mardi Gras prude flags down a pair of officers, and they take me out of the car and they arrest me. So I don't know what's happening now, because I thought it was illegal not to be drunk and making out during Mardi Gras. And the cop goes, yeah, that's true, but you got to do it in your own car. And now I'm starting to sober up. And I'm like, first off, Virgin Mary, don't be such a prude. Join in or stop complaining. But I remember thinking, I was so crazy. Stop trying to cock block me. I'm trying to get some. It's Mardi Gras, and it's a Dodge Stratus rental car. You don't think people's fucked in here before in the last 10 years? So basically, this is probably such an old reference, but I meant to think Dear Prudence and the cops don't like my Mr. Smith Goes to Washington speech. And so now me and my new friend, Mr. Large Stick Shift, are in handcuffs sitting on the side of the road.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Do you know you're not in your car yet? Do you know about the cars yet? Okay.
I don't know that I haven't come to and figured out what happened yet. And meanwhile, this dude, his name was David, he's from Chicago, goes to me. He goes, Lindsay, tell him you're a lawyer. I go, shut the fuck up. I'd be better off telling them I'm a hooker. And he's freaking out. I'm just trying to get him to shut up. At some point, my hand slips out of the handcuff. I have very small wrists, and they have to come over. Now I'm starting to sober up, and I see another red Dodge Stratus about 5 cars in front. Remember, my key opened the door. It was locked. My key opened the door. I go, oh, it's a rental. That's my car. I tell the officer, I go, hey, to the cop. I said, hey, I think I know what happened. My papers are up there. That's my car. It's a rental. I got confused. I couldn't drive. I gave the key. And he goes, okay. He checks it out. My papers are correct. He tells the other female officer, this is probably what made me be a defense attorney. He tells the other female officer, she's right. She was in the wrong car, but she has another Dodge Stratus. It's identical. 5 up here are papers. And the female cop, I'll never forget this, says, yeah, but it's Mardi Gras and we have quotas to meet. Wow. I swear in that moment, I turned from prosecutor to defense. New Orleans is crooked when they're illegitimately arresting white people. And wow. It is so crazy. So the cops throw us in the back of the car. This guy is freaking out and acting like a pussy. Can I say that on your radio show?
What is his problem?
I don't know. But we're in the back of the car. I'm handcuffed, and he's handcuffed, and he just starts bawling. And I'm going, are you fucking kidding me?
No,
I was like, no. not only have you now like shriveled up my vagina forever, I never want to have sex with you again. But now I'm like freaking out. I'm like, this dude is crying. And I don't know what to do. Christine, I don't know what to do. So I just do the only thing I could think of to shut him up. And I start making out with him. And so I start making out with him. And the female cop's like, what is she doing? And the male cop's like trying not to laugh. But he's like laughing his ass off.
Yeah, of course.
And actually it saved me because that happened. They didn't put me in a holding cell. So we I mean, the first thing I thought of to do before shutting the guy up was to grab the cop's gun and run like a fugitive. But by now I'm, sobering up. That's not a great thing to do, et cetera. So then we get there and this guy who
But you get to the cop station.
Right. The cop. Yeah. They get us to the police station.
Okay.
And now this guy who I will forever refer to as Pussy is thrown into the drunk tank. But I get to wait in holding, right? But I have to pee so badly. And I'm in like nice clothes. Like I think I was wearing like these like Chanel pants that we got at like a thrift store in New Orleans. Because New Orleans has like the best thrifting stores on Magazine. And like a top because I didn't predict I was going to end up like, trashed out of my mind.
In a drunk tank.
And I'm like, I'm like thinking to myself, I remember thinking to myself, they can throw me in a holding cell, but I'm not going to pee on my Chanel pants. I'm a lady. And for some reason, immediately after I have this thought, I can't hold my pee anymore. And I start peeing on the floor. And I like, in my drunken stupor, I'm not on any drugs. I'm just drunk. I undo my pants and start popping a squat on the floor of the police station.
Oh my God. You didn't ask anybody? You didn't think to say, where is the bathroom?
I did. I said 17 times to the female cop, I have to go to the bathroom. I have to go to the bathroom. And they were just ignoring me. They're probably used to people saying that. I don't know. But I really did have to pee. I don't even remember if this time I had my period or not. I don't remember, to be honest. And then the next thing that happens is I get charged with like criminal trespass, lewd and lascivious conduct, and public drunkenness. Now.
Oh my God.
Pop quiz. Who thinks I got charged with lewd and lascivious? Basically lewd and lascivious because I was giving a publicly drunken hand job in someone else's rental car. No. Who thinks I got charged with lewd and lascivious for peeing in a cop station? Because that's what they do with sex offenders. They charge you with like lewd and lascivious and then they say public urination. No, none of that. I got charged with lewd and lascivious conduct because New Orleans is civil code, not regular law. And saying fuck you to a cop is considered lewd and lascivious conduct. Except I never said that. She made it up.
Yeah, why would you have said that?
I don't know. I'm a lawyer. That was stupid. But remember, they don't know I'm a lawyer at this point. They don't know because I didn't tell them because I know it's better to tell them I'm a hooker. Yeah. And I'm at least maintaining some. So part of my intelligence is working and part of my intelligence is drunk out of her mind. So the next thing that happened is I remember, in the end, they charged me with public drunkenness, lewd and lascivious conduct, and criminal theft, all of which were later thrown out due to the New Orleans rigorous, uncorrupt criminal justice system. You'll hear about that at the end. So I need to post bail, but I've been sheltered my whole life, and I don't have cash. I don't know how to post bail. So I tell cop number one, I've already spent my cash on important things like hookers. I don't know why I said this. I'm crazy. Like, I'm out of my mind. Like thinking back on it, like I now wonder if like any of my drinks were like roofied or had something in them because I was so crazy. But I don't remember feeling like sleepy or anything like that. And then I remember the guy said, I tried to post my bail on credit card next. You cannot post your bail on credit card. I should have known this as an attorney, but I had never been in jail and I hadn't done the part of like being an attorney yet because it was an internship where you do the like bail post or you learn about that or the bail hearings.
Yeah.
So I try and get the cop my credit card to post my bail. And the other cop goes, do you think this is Nordstrom's? Like you can't use your credit card.
I wouldn't know that either.
And I go, and I remember going, no, but can I get American Express points for this or mileage? I was like so messed up. I'm so lucky I didn't also get charged with like resisting arrest or like something else. Like I was just like, this is like I was 23 and they probably gave me a lot of leeway. I worked for Connick Sr. at the time, which at some point they probably figured out.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know like why I said this. And my friend recently, when I told her I was going to do this, she reminded me that I also apparently said to the cop, can I also get 3% cash back? So later I told this story, I think like in a comedy set on Sit and Spin and like Comedy Central or whatever. And here are some things that cops will not accept bail for, Christine. So, you know, credit cards, PayPal, sexual favors, also not accepted for bail. Monopoly money, get out of jail free cards, crying, Bitcoin or Apple Pay. Now the crying one is weird because I used to get out of speeding tickets that way. You also can't use Starbucks cards or frozen yogurt land punch cards. But I remember thinking that New Orleans should just give like get out of jail free cards for bail because of Mardi Gras, so many people are arrested. Yeah. First public fornication, get out of jail free card.
Yeah,
so
what's the big
I'm
deal?
like, so I'm freaking out. So I have to call my dad. I wake up my dad in Seattle, and my dad answers, and I tell him in jail, and he tells me like I tell him what happened, and he knows. He goes, "Listen, I believe public drunkenness." But he's like, I know you didn't steal. He knew I didn't steal a car.
Of course.
He's like, and he believed lewd and lascivious until he learned lewd and lascivious was fuck you to a cop. Yeah. He knew I didn't tell a cop to fuck you. I'm not that stupid. But he definitely thought I was showing my tits correctly and publicly drunk at Mardi Gras. Definitely that was happening.
Yes.
Yeah. And so he calls this guy. Remember, it's the weekend of the Super Bowl. He calls Jerry, remember, the ticket broker with the guy who works for him I'm supposed to be on a date with. And says, hey, Jerry, do you have whatever the bail was? It was probably like $10,000 or $5,000 or $1,000. It has to be paid in cash. So when you get arrested, if your bail is $200,000, a lot of people don't know this. To get out of jail, the bail is 10%. So you don't have to pay all $200,000. You just pay 10% of whatever the number is.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so now you do.
So what would 200,000, 10% of 200,000 be? 2,000. Okay, good.
Well, 10%, yeah, 20,000 is 20%. 10,000 is 2,000, yeah.
Got it.
So, sorry, math is not my strong point. That's why I'm avoiding chemistry. That's why I still work for very low money when I do like comedy spots because I can't do math. And he calls Jerry, this ticket broker. He knows we'll have cash, and everyone's like, "Why does Jerry always have cash?" Well, he's a ticket broker, and I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth. And sometimes you have answers, and sometimes you need to get away from your cellmate, Big Martha, or this guy pussy. I'm freaking out. I've never been in jail. Now it's starting to dawn on me. I'm like, I might be here overnight in a cell.
How many hours has gone by?
Probably 10 at that point. Like a long time. It's like already the next morning. It's like crazy. Like there's thousands of people. Remember like how many people were in New Orleans? Imagine that amount of people and how many people got arrested that night.
Hundreds.
And like how many cops are there? And they hire extra staff. But even the FBI said they couldn't hire enough. The FBI said, we don't have enough manpower to man that airspace of Super Bowl and Mardi Gras there. And then they split it. But that means everyone who was supposed to go to Super Bowl and Mardi Gras are still there, even though they didn't have the official Super Bowl yet there. Everyone was still there.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, Jerry's friend Justin was the guy who I was supposed to be on a date with, who I blew off because I don't know. I mean, I blew him off because the cell phone wasn't working. But also, if I'm honest, I'm just not a Justin fan. I don't like guys named Justin. I really don't. Like, if you're Justin, fuck you. And maybe this has something to do with the fact that a Justin kind of screwed me over and was supposed to take me to prom and didn't show up. So I'm not a fan of Justins. I'm just not a Justin kind. You might be a Justin and a good person. But the overwhelming evidence is, according to my life experience, if you are a Justin, you are probably an asshole. So Jerry shows up with cash, and Justin, in typical Justin fashion, was so pissed at me, he wouldn't look me in the eye. Typical Justin behavior. So Justin comes to bail me out. He wants to leave my special friend in the drunk take, but I feel bad because this guy's crying. I'm like, okay, I am from the Midwest. I did feel bad. I want to leave this pussy in the drunk take and not bail him out. I would have felt bad about that. So I convinced him to get this guy out of jail too. So now I have two guys who are both super angry at me. Meanwhile, Jerry knows this councilman. I cannot recall the name of the councilman at this time, but I think it was Eddie Sapir, who is probably in jail now. Like most politicians in New Orleans end up in jail after having a bridge named after them. Like Huey Long. That's for real true. Like there's like at least like 25 politicians in New Orleans who have bridges named after them who are all in jail now and found to be corrupt. We go to Eddie Sapir's office and suddenly our arraignments disappear. And they disappear so much that later when I have to reveal to the bar in Florida that I was arrested, no one can find the records.
Wow.
Right? So meanwhile, Monday morning, I have to go to Connick Sr.'s office. Quick note, about Harry Connick Sr.'s office. There's no piano, and he is scary as hell because I honestly thought I was about to lose my paid internship and my career as a lawyer going down on its knees as fast as I would if I ever met Harry Connick Jr., which I did one time at a Mardi Gras parade 10 years later. I did not make out with him. But, here's a piece of information I've never told on a story, even with this one. There's a comic who, when I was 23, during that week, I made out with, who is from New Orleans, who I made out with. And later I met him at the Comedy Store, and I reminded him, I go, hey, do you remember this? We were at the same party in New Orleans, and you made out with my friend and I at the same time. It's like, I do vaguely remember. And
who
that comic was, go ahead, Christine, you know who it is?
Theo Von.
Yeah, Theo Von.
Wow. Theo's been on my show before, and I know he's from New Orleans. That's pretty much why I said that.
Yeah, that's right. And his father is also good friends with Harry Connick Sr. And I never even put that together until I met Theo at the Comedy Store later, because I wasn't a comic yet. And my friend reminded me, she's like, isn't that the guy that we both made out with and then I went back to the bedroom with? I'm like, yeah.
Wow, that's hilarious.
And then later, Theo, I think he was on Whitney Cummings' podcast and was talking about how big the stuff in his pants was. And I texted my friend, I'm like, is this true? She's like, yeah. And meanwhile, Theo was talking about how his gym coaches used to make comments on them. And Whitney's like, that's not okay, Theo. And did you hear that podcast?
No, I didn't, but that sounds really funny.
Yeah. And Whitney's like, Theo, I hate to tell you this, but your gym teacher making comments about your junk when you were in 6th grade is not okay. Are you finding out this right now on my podcast?
Yeah, not okay.
So meanwhile, I go in. I really am scared. And
but you're scared because you're going into your regular job with the DA, Harry Connick Sr., and you're worried that he found out what happened this weekend.
Oh, he definitely found out.
How?
Because New Orleans is a small, small town, very small, and the cops are corrupt, and also, they work with the DA all the time. So as soon as, they see my ID, they know. New Orleans is a very small town. Harry Connick Sr. was a good DA and very scary. Nice, but scary. You don't want to fuck around with this guy.
Yeah.
And I feel I'm about to lose my paid internship, and they call me in this office. Now, Harry Connick Jr. is not a Justin. I've told you how much I hate Justins, and Harry Connick Sr. not a Justin. But now I'm getting upset. Now, I'm in Harry Connick Sr.'s office, and the first thing, he calls me in there, and I think for sure I'm getting fired or put on probation or anything. Probation would have been better, and I'm freaking out because it took a long time. You had to have good grades to work that. You had to, I took And he said, Mr. Glazer, he said, say Mr. He said, Mrs. Glazer, Ms. Glazer, Ms. Because in New Orleans, they say Miss Lindsay or Miss Christine. Are in trouble, Ms. Glazer. So he said, Miss Glazer, have a seat. And I'll never forget this. He goes, can I get you a drink? I was like, this is a test. You don't say yes to that. Yeah. And I'm like, no, sir. Now I'm going to do anything.
Wow.
And he goes, so obviously, I know what happened, right? And I go, of course, sir. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm ready to take whatever it is, And he goes, tell me what happened. And I told him. And he said, are you going to do it again? And I said, no, sir. And he said, okay, last chance. Don't disappoint me, Killer. He's like, and I said, no, sir. And then he said, by the way, your new nickname is Killer. And I was like, yes, sir. And so basically moral of the story from where I sit is fuck Justin's. But also, Harry Connick Sr. called me Killer for the next 10 years. Now, I don't know if he'd recognize me now because he's retired. It's been a long time. And I look different. As you heard, my daughter said I'm much bigger now in the pandemic and I'm no longer blonde. I don't look like LA worthy anymore. I used to be size 2 blonde hair. But now I'm I don't know. Now I'm at the other end of that.
You're beautiful. Get out of here. You're absolutely beautiful. So then you continued working in his office, Harry Connick Sr.
Yeah, it was Mardi Gras, which happens in February, right? So I graduated in May, and then moved to Florida and took the bar. But I would go back.
Yeah. Wow. How did you land in New Orleans to begin with? Were you just on vacation?
No. I went to law school at Tulane University.
That's right. But then if you go to law school in one state, then you go to another state to get the bar. So you don't have to. You don't have to. I could have taken the bar in New Orleans, and I did, and I passed it.
but I didn't want to work there because New Orleans has civil code. And also it's admiralty and maritime. Once you pass law school, you can go anywhere in the country and take the bar. I could have moved to California,
but
to Washington.
Don't you have to learn new things in that state?
No. I mean, what you study for the bar has little to no bearing to what you actually practice later. You just get trained in the office you're at. Now,
is that right?
Other than New Orleans. For New Orleans, you have to know civil code or gift law to take their bar. So you have to take a different version of the bar. But everywhere else in the country, you just take standard stuff you took in law school bar. And I just took a bar review course, which is what most people.
Yeah.
But Louisiana has one of the hardest bars after California because of civil code.
Wow. That's so interesting. In other words, civil code is like a state law?
Yes. Well, civil code is state law. All states have state law. Civil code is a holdover from like before Louisiana was like independent, and it's like based in French law. And so it's got all these like different laws that we don't have other places. So normally the example I remember right now is if you give me an engagement ring, and we don't get married, I have to, I mean, not you, like a male, because it's New Orleans. So, we didn't have gay marriage yet when this law was happening. But so if you give me a ring and the guy wants to marry me, and then I don't marry you. I don't have to give the ring back unless it's an heirloom. In New Orleans, you have to give it back because it's part of like the gift law. I gave you a gift in exchange for you marrying me. I might have that backwards. Something like that.
Because we made a contract. I gave you this. You said you'd marry me. Now you won't. Give it back. Right? That makes sense.
Right. And obviously, civil code is steeped in patriarchy and male-centered laws and the male-female. But they also have laws that protected women where you were common law married, even if you didn't get a ring. And later, gay marriages in New Orleans used common law marriage. I think they used, I don't remember, to try and fight for like equal rights but before that, like gay couples were adopting each other so they could be in the hospital room because they were having all the issues because they couldn't get married.
It's so ridiculous.
But in New Orleans, which is very, very conservative in some ways, but also very progressive in others, they have like decadence, Southern decadence, which is like the gay Mardi Gras, basically. They've had a lot of activism out of New Orleans, like trying to support gay marriage that was based on originally civil code.
Interesting. Boy, oh boy. There's a couple of other comedians that I know that left law to become comedians. Paul Mercurio. Do you know Paul?
I don't know Paul Mercurio. I've heard of him.
He's in New York. And then also Jimmy Shin. Do you know Jimmy?
I know who Jimmy is, but I did not know he was a lawyer.
I don't think he finished his law degree. Maybe he did or maybe he didn't. But then, he became a comedian. I just think it's very interesting that you have people that have studied extensively and are clearly bright. Obviously, you got to be bright to get through that. And then they decide, just financially, how crazy. I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a comedian. Is that crazy or is that just me? Does that sound crazy?
Financially, it is crazy on one end. On another end, I was able to take more losses up front and get more stage time earlier because I had that other job. So it is definitely an advantage. So there's about 10 of us, right? Drew Morgan from the Well Read Tour, also an attorney, full-on attorney. Jackie Fabulous, also an attorney, full attorney, passed the bar. Dino Bedalia, Sirius radio show.
Wow.
Paul, I always forget how to pronounce his last name. Paul Baravar in Chicago with the Singles Only podcast. Also a lawyer, works at Laugh Factory in Chicago and on radio. There's some people I'm forgetting.
I love it so much, though, because it's so pure. Your love for comedy trumps the love for the law. That's it.
Yeah, it's a thing. I've always been a comic. People say, how long have you been in comedy? I'm like, well, since I was 10 years old at the dinner table.
Because comedy is a lot of word play. It's a lot about where to put the words. And I suppose as a lawyer, you get really good at briefs.
Yeah.
And that's writing, right?
Yeah. My 1 hour pilot that it won an award randomly was called Legalese. And that's what I call, it's like on the Writers Guild, but that's what I call law writing. For briefs, we call it legalese. You get good at like comedy ease. Yeah. It's different. I definitely had to, lawyers are verbose. Comedy, less fat.
Yeah.
I remember after I did my first couple hours, and then I watched someone like way more experienced than me do it. I was like, oh, I really only have 20 minutes. Like, that's like what happens in the beginning.
I know what you mean. Comedies really understand brevity, but then they can really pack a lot in. So when you watch a 1 hour Chris Rock special, it seems, it can be so flawless, but he makes it look easy. I think a lot of these comics that are really on top of their game, they just make it look so easy. It's not even like an hour went by.
Right. That's the key. So I learned something from Andy Samberg, who I've never met in public or in person or anything. I just saw he won that award for the best comedy and someone connected us.
Yeah.
I saw him say that in an hour-long set, features go, oh, I think I'm better than the headliner. But in an hour-long set, you can't just do one-liners. You have to breathe in like crowd work and storytelling and et cetera. And I was doing that naturally in the last 2 years. But when I first started doing longer sets, I was just doing like set up punchline. You can do that in a half-hour set, but you can't do that for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And that was something I didn't understand. I'm like, why are people getting tired? This is good. Set up punchline. It's quick. Yeah. It's because audiences can't pay attention to you basically fucking them in the face. That's a Susan Jones quote. With jokes for an hour, you've got to be able to do crowd work here, storytelling here, but your storytelling got to have built up crescendo punchlines.
Yeah, and then pull those people in from over there, and those people don't seem to be paying attention, so you got to get those in. And there's a lot.
This guy is drunk out of his mind. Yeah.
I would imagine that being a comedian, and when you hit the stage, it's almost as if you would hit the stage in the courtroom. You know, that in terms of like, here we go, the train is on its way, and you can't get off till you get through it.
Right, and you think in the beginning it's just about your punchlines and your material, and then you start learning more technical stuff. Is the audience leaning forward and paying attention? Or are some people not paying attention? Mm-hmm. Did you see someone yawn? Did someone have their arms full? Now you start getting all this like non-verbal technical stuff to get better that like you're explaining. Like, okay, this story is good, but at this part, these 3 lines, people start to what's it called? Space out. Okay, those 3 lines don't belong there. That's why you have to record everything. I
think it's fantastic. I think you're so interesting, and I'm so happy you came on the show, Lindsay. Really, thank you so much. And I'll thank Esther as well, because Esther connected us.
Yeah, it was so great being here. My 9-year-old doesn't think I'm interesting, so I'm glad someone does.
Oh, I think you're totally interesting, and I'm really happy you brought this story to the table. Thank you so much. Really, this is great.
Thank you for having me.
All right, you guys, we got to wrap it up. Don't forget to check out Lindsay over at our website, lindsayglazer.com. That's Lindsay with an A, lindsayglazer.com. And then also check out Storyworthy at storyworthypodcast.com. And, of course, follow the show on social media at Storyworthy. And don't forget to check out My Life in 3 Songs, where I'm coming to your house. All right, you guys, one more time on behalf of the very talented Lindsay Glazer. Thank you, friend.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
My name is Christine Blackburn, saying, make it a story-worthy week.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy Podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.